The deregulation of the telecoms industry in 2001 marked a turning point in Nigeria, leading to the evolution of the digital economy and catalyzing economic growth. Substantial growth occurred between 2003 and 2017, leading to job creation and the emergence of an ecosystem of businesses that have empowered Nigerians. Since 2022, the industry has faced challenges as investment in telecoms infrastructure has declined. Understanding the need to chart a pathway for the industry's sustainability, Financial Directives Company, an economic intelligence and research firm, hosted a town hall titled 2 Decades After, What Next for the Telecoms Industry? Delivering the goodwill messages on behalf of the Ministries of Finance and that of Industries, Trade and Investments, Dr. Armstrong Takong, the MD of Ministry of Finance Incorporated Limited, and Mr. John Ugochukwu Uwajumogu, the Special Advisor to the President on Trade and Industries, respectively commended FDC for convening the discourse and assured the industry of the enabling policy environment to thrive in the decades ahead.
Let me start by thanking FDC for putting this together. And the reason why this is important is that someone has to take the lead in bringing issues that are germane to our society. And FDC has been a major player in bringing up issues that are key to economic activities. And Mr. Rwani, thank you very much for leading this. And I believe that we should celebrate people when they are still alive than waiting when they are no longer there to celebrate them. I think Mr. Rwani is one of those people that we really need to see as someone that we celebrate amongst ourselves. What do we see as Telecoms 2.0 in Nigeria? What do we want to achieve from that? Because the next 25 years will be very different from the last 25 years. But what happens in the next 25 years is a function of what we do, the choices we make, the decisions that we make, and the enabling environment that we create to attract not only domestic capital, but also foreign capital flows into the sector. And that is why, as the government, we're excited about a sector that benefited not only from private capital, but from private business people coming into that sector, taking away the monopoly of a government entity and creating global brands in that sector was key in transforming and bringing about the benefits of telecoms in Nigeria.
As we see with rapid technological advancements, whether it's AI, nanotechnology, the leapfrogging possibilities that we witnessed over the last 20 years has even been intensified and is still present. So it means that there's still an opportunity for us to continue to leapfrog like we did 20 years ago with the regulation of the telecom space and riding on this new wave of Industry 4.0 and avoid the long and painstaking pathway, traditional development routes that some countries took to prosperity. We can realize the productivity gains of this latest industrial revolution by making sure we've future-proofed our economy.
Remember, government's role is not to come and run these businesses or to operate these businesses. Government's role is to create the enabling environment so that these businesses would thrive. Government's role is to make sure we have the right regulations in place that will not impede progress, but will enable progress. Government's role is to ensure that we have policies that make it easier to attract investments into not only the sector, but to the country at large.
What is really going to work is a collaboration between government and the private sector. The way, as the world gets increasingly connected and as things become increasingly decentralized, issues are also becoming diffused. Issues that used to be there used to be a clear delineation between public and private, but these days they are so intertwined that collaboration is the only way we are going to be able to move forward.
Given the keynote on the Nigerian telco industry, Mr. Bolaji Balogun, the Chief Executive Officer of Chapel Hill Denham, believed the liberalization of the industry, which has witnessed over $70 billion worth of investments in the last 2 decades, requires scale and further investments in enabling infrastructure that will unlock more growth and opportunities.
There's some work that needs to be done around domestication, but government's responsibility is to support people and then to keep the discipline. If you set tariffs to protect local manufacturing, you need to keep that discipline in place because people have made investments and they want to get a return. The second thing is we have to create a model where all of these pools of capital we own domestic, NSIA, MOFI, are positioned to co-invest with people who want to create domesticated businesses. So if Samsung turns up today and say we want to do handsets in Nigeria, NSIA and MOFI must say we'll take 25% of the equity. What it does for Samsung immediately, okay, is Samsung suddenly knows that for a local partner, right? The local partner is a significant local partner, so they're not going to come and mess with you. And if they mess with you, the local partner go and solve the problem. Yeah? So that co-invest model is also key. The third thing we need to do is we need to create, a series of incentives for companies in this sector. But we also need to encourage all the companies in this sector to use public markets. And MTN has led that, and through the work that we've done with MTN, I'm very, very proud, of the progress they've made, and I'm hoping that more of the MNOs, as well as the companies in the value chain, are going to do that, right, over the next, few months. And if you can put all of your debt, it doesn't matter, at the time of building, some of your debt might be dollars. But the moment you build, if you can transit all of your debt into local currency, the local markets are deep for financing. So we've raised hundreds of billions of naira regularly, and the pension industry and the local investment community is 20 trillion naira and growing by more than 25% every year. The capital is there to support these businesses. So again, regulation, right? And constructive regulation. It's not forcing, right? To say, as an industry, we have to localize more and we have to domesticate more. And when we look at the value chain of the industry, the equity can be in dollars. There's no problem with it. Yeah? But if you have a scenario where for 100% of the equity, they're demanding dollars, for 100% of the dividend, they're demanding dollars, they actually end up inadvertently becoming a nuisance to the country because they're putting pressure on the FX. The only thing they need to be taking dollars out for is the dividend. And what must end up happening, right, is the banks must go and solve the problems of the FX for their value chain. And once you have made the CAPEX investment, you need to put the stuff into the markets and finance it long. And our domestic capital markets today, right, have gone out to as long as 10 years for companies like MTN. We finance things out to 20 years in domestic capital markets, so it is possible. Yeah? The entire ecosystem has a big opportunity. And that ecosystem is all of us. This is not the regulator is not going to do it alone. And I think if you get a regulator who is engaging and willing to be quite constructive, operators also need to meet this regulator more than half. Operators are also going to have to change their ways. And we also have to learn from some of the elements that have happened before. Too much dollarization in a high inflationary market always leads to indigestion. You might have long periods of stability, but when the currency goes, you will always end up with indigestion. So imagine in Nigeria where all Nigerians interact with the government digitally, you'll change this country forever, okay? And you will do something to literacy, right? You will do something to lifting people out of poverty. You will change this country forever. Because as they interact with you, they're also going to conduct business and commerce on those platforms. Second thing, AI is going to increase the requirements substantially for broadband and for data center capacity and for the power that powers those things exponentially. Okay? That needs some major investments that have not been made today. And the owners of the businesses need to be able to invest and to get a good return. They're not running a charity, they're running a business. Yeah? And some of these things we do around taxation policy, are really not thinking about the future. The one thing that's going to lift this country and hundreds of millions of our people out of poverty is investments.
The event featured panel sessions that discussed ways to reposition the telco industry for growth. The convener, Mr. Bismarck Kirwani, and other key stakeholders speak on what is critical for the Nigerian telco industry in the years ahead.
This industry was generating $8.6 billion of revenues about 7 years ago, and it's now generating only $3 billion. It is 1/3 its size in terms of revenue, but it's about almost 2/3 its size in terms of cost. So EBITDA is high, but profit after tax is a loss. So something has to be done. What needs to be done is to allow a liberalization of the pricing structure, but also improvement in the quality of service and oversight to ensure that consumers are not gouged. I think that is the purpose of this discussion. And did we achieve it? I think so.
We're here when the industry started 25 years ago. It was like a joke. But NITEL, we didn't know was going to agree. And I think we are grateful to President Obasanjo for the creation, for the privatization. And it has become a status quo. And today is to say, okay, 25 years, what are we now going to do in the next 25 years? And you were here, so you can see the thinking, which was very, very, very wonderful, particularly the talk by Bolaji Balogu. So it's a wonderful thinking process. And we can also think about other sectors of the economy. Having existed for 20, 25 years or before, what we're now going to do for the next 25 years.
What we see and what we're discussing with the regulator, there's got to be mechanisms that, to access the last mile, which is really how you start to unlock everything from both financial inclusion, but to flow of capital at that level, has to be ways that are seamless, that are without real borders, as it were. And USSD has proven itself to be one such opportunity. So I think I see all of that to say that the discussions with the telecommunications, with the sector, while we are this keen about the regulation and about the health there, is everything both from our core sort of listing conversation, but everything across what is the entire financial market sort of infrastructure and system.
Once you understand that the transition that the sector is going to go through is a movement from voice and data today towards a much more digital future, then we have to create the enabling environment where the operators in the sector are able to invest and are able to get a return. So that means everything from incentives to protection, right, of local production of things, to developing the local talent pool. There's a concerted amount of areas in which there can be coordination between all the participants in the ecosystem. And as the government understands what its own responsibility will be, the operators also have to make a commitment that if you do A, B, C, D, E, these are the things that we will do. Operators, whether we like it or not, are going to have to domesticate more of their value chain. In addition to that, operators are going to have to use less dollar financing in their businesses, and utilize more of domestic capital markets.
I think it's important that the government will stimulate investment in the sector. Government needs to give some form of recognition to the challenge the sector is facing. It's obvious that from the economic headwinds, we're not insulated from the entire ecosystem. So we face the problems that's faced by other sectors of the economy. And as you have seen the trend in the last 10 months, almost every sector has adjusted in one way or the other for their price to reflect the cost of input. We have not been able to do that, recognizing that we're a social service sector, recognize that we're very critical to the life of the average Nigerian, but also above all that we're critical to the digital economy and financial inclusion. However, for the sustainability of the industry and for us to continue to have life cycle and provide services on an uninterrupted basis to the public, we must be sustainable as an industry. With the current scheme of things, without looking at our numbers, it will be difficult to sustain the sector. Without government doing something to stimulate and remotivate investment to the sector, we may not have the required capital to sustain networks, to keep the quality of service that is required, and to be able to deliver the good to the consumers. So I think it's important that government look at the state of health of the sector. And that's what the town hall meeting today has identified, that the state of health of the sector and the sustainability of the industry is very critical to our national economy. And that's something has to be done about it here.
A major takeaway from the FDC-powered telecommunication town hall is Mr. Bolaji Balogun's assertion that for the industry to attract more investments and achieve sustainability, the ecosystem needs to increase localization, minimize exposure to foreign exchange financing, utilize the capital markets, and develop a plan for talent development.